Good morning. Hello, everyone. Welcome on this lovely, gorgeous, sunny Saturday morning. It's not, is it? It's just not sunny, is it? It's pretty miserable. It's wet. It's raining. What better place to be, than here? I mean, what else could you be doing on a Saturday morning other than spending some time with us and everyone else that's online here? So, welcome to the Property CEO support session. My name's Ritchie for those that don't know, and I'm here with the other half of Property CEO, Mr. Ian Child, who clearly needs his haircut, as you can see. What exactly are support sessions when they're home? Well, regular 45-minute sessions. We try and get done in 45 minutes. You guys ask too many questions, so we often end up going over a little bit, but we'll definitely be done by 11, so you can go and enjoy the rest of the gorgeous weather out there. But it's all about injecting a bit of positivity into what's happening right now, isn't it, Mr. Child, sir?
It certainly is. And for those of you that are new to these support sessions, a very warm welcome. Let me just briefly tell you sort of who we are and what we do. Basically, we train people how to develop property. So even if people haven't maybe done property development before, I think many people like the idea of developing property, but worry that it might be a bit risky or a bit complex. So basically, our job is to give them the support and training they need to do it as safely and successfully as possible. And we decided to run these support sessions because we wanted to try and help people get through something which is, let's face it, quite a challenging time at the moment. And we know from experience that recessions create lots of opportunity. So we thought, wouldn't it be great to see if we could help people find those opportunities and get prepared for them. And whilst there's no way we can kind of ignore what's going on in the world around us with regards to on the kind of the healthcare side and being stuck indoors, we do know that people that kind of focus on their livelihoods now are likely to come out of the coronavirus situation and obviously what's looking like a recession in the best possible shape. So that's exactly who we are and why we're here. We also thought that this exercise, these sessions would be a really good way of documenting exactly how bad our haircuts could get before the end of the lockdown. Now, you may have noticed if you were here at the last session, Ritchie, unfortunately, has cheated, not perhaps unsurprisingly, and had his good lady attack his locks with some clippers. I can report back here that my oldest daughter has been watching YouTube videos on hair cutting, so I am no longer falling asleep on the sofa and live in a certain amount of fear. But I'm not sure how it's all going to end. But hopefully, hairdressers, I'm hoping, will reopen quite soon.
That's the trouble with you, you see, you talk about hairdressers. Most guys here, they talk about barbers. You go, no, we'll go to hairdressers. Get a little bit of poncing up with your hair, and you need to get it sorted because there's already a flood of comments coming in that you're looking a little bit like a shaggy dog. So you're going to have to sort that out.
There's that little
morning, you people that are joining us, quite a few of you on here this morning. Now, Michael's put an Italian good morning in there. Do you know how you pronounce that? Can you pronounce that? You only got it Italian?
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Excellent. Good. There's here. Look, bilingual. What about Doms?
Morning, gents. I think we'll do that one.
That's an easy one. Hello, chaps. Morning, guys. Hair is overrated, says Jim. That's because Jim's got Jim sports a similar cut to me, albeit a tad shorter. Morning, Jim.
The reverse Mohican.
No. His is much more stylish. He's got nothing going on. And Yoko says hello. She actually got lots of O's on it. Nice to see you again, and thanks for hosting this. Really appreciate it. Yoko, you're welcome. Although you never know, it might be a rubbish show. So we reserve judgment. Anyway, just to add what Ian said. This is a half full zone. The glass is always going to be half full when you're here. As Ian said, we're not belittling anything that's going on like that. There's a load of old stuff going on. And, some of us are being touched by that directly, ourselves included. But here, this is all about positivity. It's a positive place for anyone that's struggling. Come here and have a little bit of upbeat time. I think hopefully she's on. Let's have a look. Oh, no, because Jim's on, but Jim's partner Leanne said the other day, she said, It might sound a bit silly, she said, but this is a place which I quite enjoy coming to because it gets me a bit of adult time and away from the kids for an hour, which I love. So yeah, Jim, pass those thanks on to Leanne for that, which is really, really good. Loads of people joining today. Can't even mention them all, but yeah, Yvonne, I've just mentioned Yoko, Trish, Tarek. Good morning, Tarek. Hello there. Steve's on. Simon, you know who you are, Simon and Simon. Roma's on. Ian, that connection of yours there. Look, Ritesh, Richard, Rebecca, Raj, Michael. Morning, Michael. Communicate with Michael in the week. Good morning to you. Quite a lot of people we don't know. Put your hands up if you're first time here to this show, please. Put your hands up. Yes, there's a few. Good stuff. Yeah, Paul,
welcome.
Risha, welcome. So yeah, there's quite a few first-time people. And also, can you put your hands up? I'm sure you can all hear us. Just give us your hands up if you can definitely hear us. Oh, yes, excellent. Dom, good morning. Gary, Gavin, good morning. Graham, Gerd's on twice. Gerd, you've logged on twice, my friend. That means you're going to get double the show today. That can't be bad, can it? Double the show.
I knew we'd get one eventually.
Yeah. Great stuff. Lots of morning chats. Leanne. So Jacqueline says, by the way, Jim passes back to Leanne. Jacqueline says, I'm so with you on the kid thing. Jacqueline, I'm pleased we can give you a little bit of respite care this morning away from the children. Right, guys, shall we get started with some questions? As always, please put your questions in the chat box. We're very lucky. You guys asked. You said that we asked you what you wanted on. So we've got a project manager on. Quite a few people asked in the chat box last week, could we get a project manager on, stroke quantity surveyor? We scraped around, we saw what we could find. The people we wanted weren't available. Anyway, what we've got Dan Stiles on. Dan runs two businesses, is involved in two businesses, DDS and Syndicate. He's going to come on about 1:15. Hopefully he's going to join us then, and he'll be ready to take your questions. But any other questions you've got before that, let's have in, and we'll get going on that. Excellent. So Nina says, good morning, guys. Good to see you again. Good to see you on board, Nina. Good to see you on board. Karen says, hi, Ian and Ritchie. Excellent. Right, first question. I got a question in. Let's see if he's on. Yeah, Malcolm, you're on. Malcolm, this is a question that Malcolm put in prior to the show. So you're welcome to put any questions into the team beforehand, and we'll try and pick these up. So just put them to the support at propertyceo.co.uk. Nice to get them on the day as well. But anyway, let's have a look. Jim says he will pass his comments on to Leanne Jacqueline. So thank you, Jim. Right, Malcolm's got two questions here, and I quite like these. So the first one is, I'm looking to purchase a retail unit with a one-bed flat above, which has a separate entrance, which is located in South Birmingham. I won't give the address out, Malcolm, because this lot, I tell you what, they'll be over there like a shot and then nick it off you. Awful lot. I can see all the names on there, Malcolm. I wouldn't trust any of them. Well, a few of them are okay, but you know. Anyway, he says the retail unit has a basement, and the intention is to convert the basement into a bedroom and a further bedroom in the shop, which will also comprise of a lounge and a kitchen and a bathroom. Excellent. So his question is, I'll also convert the one-bed flat into a two-bed apartment. His question is planning permission required on the retail unit or the flat, or can work be carried out under PD? Anyone follow that? I didn't. I'm completely confused. But I think the bottom line is, this is to do with retail units and permitted development rights in retail units and what you can and can't do. So in simple terms, Malcolm's looking to purchase a unit. It appears to have a ground floor, a basement, and a first floor. So there's two permitted development rights that come in here, Malcolm. But as always, I'm going to give you a brief overview. But as we always say, go back to your planning consultant, because certain areas have certain little tweaks and things going on. But you have two things, Class G and Class M, that you need to be thinking about for this question, okay? Class G is all about flats above retail units. That gives you the opportunity to put two flats above each retail unit. So you can take a retail unit on the ground floor and you can have two flats above. It sounds like in Malcolm's case here that he's already got a flat above. He just wants to turn a one bed into a two bed. Don't need planning permission to do that, Malcolm. So that's relatively straightforward, providing you're working within the envelope in the building and you're not extending out. So that's fairly straightforward in itself. Converting the ground floor into a shop might be able to be done. and that would probably come under Class M. But as I say, please, I'm not a planning specialist, so please speak to your planning consultant in your area, Malcolm. But Class M gives you the ability to convert in certain circumstances, based around a few rules, up to 150 square meters into residential. There are various other criteria, all with all PD rights. I'm not going to go through those in detail this morning, but in broad terms, you've got that ability. The basement is an interesting one, and I'm not the PD right. I don't think, and I say I don't have it in my mind to detail, covers off retail space below. So you might be having to think about that one. That might be something you've got to have a little think about. But one thing you can do, and I've heard this from a planning consultant before, where they actually say, if you can put retail in the ground floor in a high street area, you can use the Class G to do 2 flats above and do flats at ground floor. Little tweak that you can play around with the words in these PD rights to get things to stack up. So in broad terms, just for everyone out there, and specifically Malcolm, for you, my friend, Class G, Class M is what you need to have a look at. You can go on the planning portal, you can look those up, but the best thing always with these is present your case to a planning consultant. If you haven't got a planning consultant, look one up. I'll tell you where they are at the moment. They're all stuck at home like the rest of us, so they're not going anywhere. And look them up, connect up with them. Most of them are keen to have a chat. Everyone's looking for work opportunities. I'm sure they give you a bit of feedback on the specific thing you're looking at, and if there's any quirks with the rules or what you're trying to do. Malcolm, hopefully that's helped. Hopefully that's answered your question. Good stuff. Should we take one more? We've got a chance to get one more on before we get Malcolm on, shall we?
Get Malcolm on.
What about a question for you? You up for a question, my friend?
I'm up for a question, yeah.
Even though your hair is a bit scruffy. I mean, I've had no comments in on Ian's hair this morning. A little bit disappointed in you guys. I thought, the fact that I'm sporting a new cut and I've made a bit of effort, and Ian's turned up like he's been dragged through a hedge backwards. I'd rather hope you guys would have put a bit of banter in the box in here, just to I can then use that and just have a little poke at him. So you know what we're like. Come on, guys, have a few comments in here. Saturday morning, have a bit of fun. Right, good. Ian, a question for you. I've heard a lot about a V-shaped recovery. Do you think this is likely? And this is a question we got in prior to the show, but I can't remember who it was from. So do you think a V-shaped recovery is more likely?
So it's quite a big question then, Rich, isn't it? What sort of recovery likely to get? I think the answer is I don't know. Okay,
let's move on then, because Ian doesn't know the answer to the question. I thought you'd know.
No, one of the challenges I think everybody's got, all economists are in the same boat, that it's impossible to predict what sort of recovery we're going to get, simply because nobody has had this combination of the coronavirus with the recession. So the answer is it depends. Just to be clear, the V-shaped thing is where we go straight down and then straight up the other side. And most recessions are actually like that historically, normally have a relatively quick recovery. I think it's unlikely that we're going to be in that place, and that's simply because I can't, for my mind, if we're going to get back to normal, or we need to get back to normal in order for that to happen, and I just can't see us getting back to a place where all of the businesses are open exactly as they were before, with no social distancing, with no lockdown, with no segregation of people that are perhaps in higher risk groups and so on and so forth. So I think that a V-shaped recovery is probably less likely. I think there's an underlying thought that perhaps the economy is because this is an extraneous factor, it's an external factor to what's going on. It's not as if the car has broken down, it's merely sort of crashed into a virus. That if we can get rid of the virus thing, then the economy should bounce back relatively quickly. But I think that's got quite a bit of a story left to run on it. So I think I've seen quite a lot of speculation out there that there's lots of letters involved. There's U-shaped recoveries, C-shaped recoveries, L-shaped recoveries. I think perhaps the most likely story I've heard is one that was likened to the Nike swoosh, the tick on the trainers, where basically we do start to turn the corner, but it's a slightly more gradual uplift. As let's be honest, it sounds likely that unless we're able to get to a point where there's a vaccine, then the economy is not likely to get back to full speed that quickly. It's going to be a slower process, and so you would expect the economy to go with that. So it's a moving feast, and it all depends on the virus. Lots of commentators don't know the answer, so it's not just me.
A few comments in. Michael says, Nike, not Nike, you don't ride a bikey.
Right. Okay.
Michael, I don't know. Has Michael been drinking heavily overnight? I don't know. A couple of other things here, just follow that. Ritesh says, morning Ritesh, the governor of the Bank of England is now checking stats, although he believed in a V-shaped recovery. Good stuff, good stuff. Yoko's put a few smiley faces in here, probably after I took the mick out of your hair, Ian. Some really nice feedback from David. David, Malcolm, as I was answering your question, Dave was on saying Class M, Class G, less than 150 square meters. You might better extend out the back. Excellent. You might need to keep 300 square foot of shop at the front. He said, speak to Colin Smith. Malcolm, I don't know if you're on last week. I don't know if you know Colin Smith from CJS Planning. I think his details are in the show notes on YouTube for last Saturday's event. Yeah?
They are.
Yeah. So Malcolm, Colin Smith's really good. He was actually on last Saturday, talking about all things PD. So Dave, well said. Colin could be your man out there. Have a chat with him and see where things are at. Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, another little interesting comment. Malcolm, when we were talking about your property, Ritesh says, what's the address for more due diligence? I assume he wants to nick it off you. Come on, Ritesh, play. You're going to be cleverer than that. You can't just give his address out. Good stuff. Yes, Malcolm says he has Colin's details. Excellent, Malcolm. I know you've seen him speak before, so go for that. Right, shall we see who wants to listen to Dan Stiles and ask Dan Stiles a few questions? Give me a few waves if you want Dan Stiles to come on. No one's waving. Okay, we can't have Dan on. Excellent.
Dan's waving.
Ritesh says he's trying. It's a Saturday. Ritesh, you won't get one over on Malcolm that easy. Malcolm's got a few grey hairs. Malcolm, and no disrespect, but you're gonna have to get up early in the morning to catch him out. Right. First of all, let's see if we can bring Dan on. Dan, hopefully you're there. Can you hear us, Dan?
Hello. Good morning.
Right. Can you? Let's see if we can see Dan as well. Dan, can you turn your camera on?
Okay,
Any minute now. As you can see, Dan is a very technically orientated person, and there he is.
He is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Going to drop all the hands. Can you give me a wave if you can see Dan and hear Dan? Can you say a few things, Dan?
Good morning. That was a nice intro there. I don't know what you were talking about. It was like being on Saturday morning TV or something.
You are on Saturday morning TV. Great stuff. Everyone can hear you. So, Dan, welcome to the show. Dan Stiles, I've worked with over a good few years. Dan and I, we get on. We have a bit of a laugh, and we do some good business together. I mean, I don't like him, to be fair, but he's good at what he does, and that's the main thing, isn't it? You don't have to like people. But Dan, let's have a look at your haircut. Are you sporting a decent haircut?
Yeah, I did the test drive a couple of weeks ago, actually. We did the YouTube videos, and the other half, she had a go at it. She did a cracking job. She went and did the dog after, so I'm not sure.
I love the fact that she cried out on you before she went and done the dog.
Yeah.
Priorities, love it.
Yeah, she did a good job. Yeah.
Jacqueline says he is upside down. Has anyone else got Dan upside down on their screens? Give me a hands up if you have, because I haven't. No, Jacqueline, it must just be you. You've just got him upside down. Ritesh is on it today. Ritesh says, Dan. Ritesh says, did the dog get the fleas after? That's a bit harsh. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? That's a bit harsh.
That'll be telling.
Right, let's get on with a few questions. Right, let's have a look. Good stuff. So I'm just picking up stuff as I go through. So we've got some questions. I'm just going to scroll back up. Okay, question from Clive. Good morning, Clive. Question for you then, Dan. Are you ready for this, my friend?
Sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan, before you start, tell us a bit, because people might be thinking, well, who the hell is this Dan Stiles? Why don't you just do an unashamed plug of who you are and what you do, because you have two companies.
Okay, all right. So, nutshell, there's DDS Consulting with the cost managing side, quantity surveyors and the old name, looking after all the commercial legal side of projects. And Syndicate is the project management arm, looking after the actual implementation side of getting the job done. So in a nutshell, without going into lots of detail, that's what the two businesses do. More details on their websites, tells you all about what we do.
If you want to just shout your websites out, grab a pen and paper, everyone. If you want to get Dan's details, we'll put them in the show notes on YouTube so you can pick them up. Give us 2 seconds, get your pens ready, and Dan, give us your 2 website addresses.
So it's www.dds Delta Delta Sierra Consulting.co.uk and syndicatepropertydevelopment.com.
And your email address if people want to email you some abuse?
It's on the websites. It's easiest to do that. Yeah.
He doesn't know it, guys. He struggles.
No, they're different addresses for different things. So yeah, they're all on there. All the information out to get in touch with us is all there.
Great stuff. Right, let's go back to Clive's question then. Right, Dan, let's go for the first question. What effect do you think the current situation will have on construction costs?
Construction costs. I think in the short term, we're going to see a spike based on material shortages. I think at the moment, we've been utilising where we can products that are in stock on the shelf, but ultimately supply chain is going to be suffering long term. So I think it's going to be volatile. I think plastics, it all depends on the raw material, how available it is out there that they can get into manufacturing. So it's a tricky one to guess at, but I would imagine it will go up.
Okay. Is there any particular materials, Dan, that you've seen are becoming a real problem at the moment?
I would imagine the textile stuff, things that are going into developing treatments and clothing for the coronavirus certainly are having an effect. I mean, I'll give you an example. I've been trying to source new shirts and things for the business, and the priority is frontline workers, getting sure, the companies are moving away from their traditional sense to try and plug the gaps where we've got shortfalls in the industry. So there is that. So I think we will just see a longer lead time of getting materials, and it will have an effect for sure.
But is there any materials, just as an interesting question to follow up here for people, that perhaps are coming from overseas, China particularly, where things have shut down, that could store? Is there any particular materials from a particular geographical location that you think could be a problem?
I think anything that's been manufactured in China. I think plastics, oil-based products could be ones that suffer. It's, without knowing where those suppliers source their materials from, it's difficult to comment upon it. But at the moment, we're not seeing companies saying we can't provide you this because we can't get it. I think because of everybody's lockdown, it will evolve, and it will come out. I would imagine things coming out in the Middle East, Far East, oil-based plastic products could be the ones that are suffering to start with.
Yeah. I mean, over the years, the things that we've always had those shortages of is things like plasterboard. Everyone tries to stockpile plasterboard and bricks and blocks. Do you see any of that type of material, these key basic components being held up?
Possibly. It all comes down to the ability to produce that material. If you've got your workforce all on sort of skeleton hours, you're going to have an effect. We will know on the other coming out of this. We'll soon see what materials in short supply. So it's a bit early to say right now what is and isn't. But what we're hearing from the tradesmen is that products are getting harder to get hold of. But that doesn't mean they're available. It just means they're maybe just harder to get hold of. So yeah, it's a difficult one to call, but potentially.
And in terms of then tendering, another question here that's in terms of tendering, what's the current position? So if we've got people that's got projects right now, and they're going to be potentially out there putting them out or thinking about putting them out to tendering, what's your view on the timing of that in this market? Because there are obviously there are some developers online here. I know, and there's probably some other people I don't know who are developing, who are thinking about going out to tender, and they're just really concerned about it. What's your view on the tendering time at the moment?
My view on it is you should continue. I think it is an opportunity, and I would say that to everybody we deal with, is that don't just put the handbrake on. There could be an opportunity to do better deals, secure things, because I believe that people that had secured projects before we went into this possibly will have those shelved. So there's going to be a movement in the business. So I don't think all of those will start up immediately, probably because they may not be able to get funding, or they may have cash flow issues themselves. So my feeling on it is continue. We are still continuing to work on trying to secure projects, because I think you need to be on the front foot coming out. If you sit back and wait, you're going to be in a lag. That's the way I see it. But it's not my money, but ultimately we're trying to invest that wisely and get the best deal. So if you look at it that way, you don't have to press the go button, but if you're on the front foot, you're ahead of the game. So I'd still think, as long as you're not expending a huge amount of money at this stage, if you're looking for viabilities or still looking what's going on out there, listening to what the estate agents are saying, it sounds like they're going to be one of the ones that are going to be first out the door to get that sector going again. So if you're on that and you're in that loop, you're ready to go. But if you're not, and you're sitting back and waiting, you just might miss an opportunity. So
your view really on that is, yeah, carry on as normal. I guess at the end of the day, even if we get a tender price in now, typically we're talking about a 90-day price that will be held for 90 days.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys before we were going into this were starting to hold the price in, but then we're now in a position where those jobs that they may have wanted to secure going into it, they'll want to continue to secure those. So they're going to try and keep those prices as low as they can. It all depends if they're feeling the squeeze on their side. But yeah, I think do what you can, within reason.
Okay, good stuff. Another question in here. In the future, do you expect contractors to insist on some form of pandemic clause in the contracts, given force majeure does not exist under English common law, which will give them an entitlement to additional time and money? That's in from Michael.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting subject. We are looking at it in what can be put into a contract now. Now knowing it's there, you need to make sure that there's something potentially written into your contract conditions that protects that position, because you can't rely on that force majeure clause. We've seen, what you just said there. So I think that will develop. And I think one of the things that will also come into play potentially is a tightening from funding, that they may be more stringent on the lending criteria. That will mean that, what protection have they got, that we're not going to go straight back into another spike. So I think contractually we'll see what comes out in the next few weeks, but potentially there should be something written into the contracts going forward.
Okay, good. John's just put a comment in, which was good. Hang on, maybe there's a further one up. Yeah, okay. Right, no, let me read John's. Oh, there's several things coming from John. Sorry, let's try to keep up with these. I'm not sure if this is a question or a statement. Let me read it out. Just very difficult to control in this period, in my view. Seems like a better time to source deals and negotiate. Seems like resources are better spent doing subject to planning deals and focus on front end deal sourcing. Just his opinion. Is referring to controlling construction costs and in turn costs associated with undertaking development due to construction management difficulties. I think what John's saying there, that yeah, controlling construction costs at the moment is a difficult time. I think this is what John's saying. And in terms of developers spending their time looking for deals, maybe subject to planning. I think there's a couple of things to add on to that, John. And really, this is just sort of in the mix of everything we're discussing with Dan here. In our opinion, yeah, as new developers, not always best to spend time on planning deals. There are so many opportunities out there for permitted development rights. If you hadn't heard me speak about where I think the market's going, maybe listen to some of the past sessions that we've done on YouTube, some of the early ones a few weeks ago. I think there's some strong possibilities out there coming up under PD, and that's a much safer place to be. One of the big issues, John, I think this is for everyone, the planning system is under so much pressure. If you're going down a traditional planning route, even a deal subject to planning, you've just got a very open-ended timescale. My concern for you guys is you don't need to be there. There's better places to be. I accept in terms of spending too much time on construction bits and pieces, but equally, if you add in, John, what Dan's saying, that there is. And I was speaking this down to a couple of students, and I know you're pricing a couple of deals for these, and they were asking me what to do. And I said, look, my opinion is you could actually just be absolute, you're saying it's a stressful time, but you might just be in the best position you've ever been in, because if we look at this as half full, in 2 years' time, if as Ian talked about earlier, it was a V-shaped recovery, and obviously no one knows, so your values in 18 to 24 months could be stabilized where you expected them to be, but actually you can, if you haven't exchanged, you can chip the vendor a little bit on the price, and you get a cracking construction cost because the contractors are keen to secure work coming out of this. You might just have your profit margins increase. So definitely worth spending the time on that at the moment.
Yeah. I think you need to have an air of caution in there. I think that's what I was trying to say is, do it within reason. Don't start spending masses of time and money chasing something that may or may not come to fruition. But if you're already in a strong position before you were going into this, then potentially keep that momentum going and then get yourself positioned ready that when the green light goes, you're off to go. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, no, I liken the data someone as like a marathon. And I'm not talking about the one with peanuts in, Ian, if that's what you're thinking.
Didn't say a word.
You're there with the tape, and you want to be at the front. When that tape gets cut, you want to be out the starting blocks and away. You don't want to be at the back of the queue because you miss things. John says that I did get his,
Ritchie drawing on his extensive marathon experience there. Thanks for that.
You can take the mick all you like, Mr. Child, but look, who in their twilight years has done their knee in and they can't run anymore at the moment? And I don't want to, I wouldn't ordinarily put this out there, but you can have a little stab at me. We'll have a little go back. Who went on a little running race across the fields around your area with your wife and 2 daughters? And where did you come in that race, Ian?
It wasn't a race. Only 3 of us saw it as a race, so it wasn't unanimous at all.
Okay. Did you come first?
It's not happening again.
Did you come first?
It's not a race.
The second?
It's not a race.
I think the word you're looking for is last, Ian.
4th, actually 4th, not last.
4th out of 4. Anyway, John said I did get his comments right. I did paraphrase that right. Thank you, John. And he says good points. Thank you about the PD stuff, and hopefully he's thinking of that. Okay, Ritesh says, Dan, one for you here. Is it worth considering future-proofing the project, perhaps ecologically friendly post-COVID-19? What's your views on that?
Oh, I'd like to, I don't really know, to be honest. What does that involve? To be COVID-19 eco-friendly. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'd have to think on that one, but I don't really know.
Ritesh. Ritesh is on here a lot. It's a good contributor. Ritesh, we love having you on here. What are you thinking? Give us a steer of where you're thinking of going down this road. What is it you're thinking about being ecologically friendly? Are you thinking about a development that we can all build 2 meters apart? Because I think if you're thinking of those type of things, that's interesting, because one thing, Dan, when we were talking about this the other day with someone, they were talking about modular, and they were saying, what's your views on modular? Well, apart from the commerciality of modular and so on and so forth, one thing interestingly is that it is perhaps more COVID-19 friendly, because you're building stuff in a factory which is much more controlled, and when you deliver it to site, it's not like you've got 2 bricklayers working next to each other. Okay, you've got to clad the thing and so on, but it definitely has some advantages of building something COVID-19 friendly. Ritesh says changes in the environment due to the recent events. Ritesh, I'm still not quite sure. But I mean, it's good that you're following up here. But I think there's definitely ways you can think about building. The only thing I would say is, I mean, I picked up on the news last night, Ritesh, and this is for everyone as well, that they're talking about a vaccine, and someone was talking about September. Did you see that, Ian, about September trying to come up with a vaccine?
Yeah, not specifically that article, but I've seen lots of coverage of when that's likely to be, because it's such a critical date, isn't it?
Yeah, and so the thing I'd look at as well is that I think from a construction point of view, and this is worth just thinking about this, Ritesh, is we'll be over it. I think from a business point of view, I put a post out in a group the other day. I might share it on Facebook, actually. It was it's like a 15-minute rant about the elephant in the room that no one's talking about. I'll tell you what, I put it out on Facebook later. I share that after this, so you can have a listen to me ranting on for 15 minutes. But it's talking about getting businesses going, and the elephant in the room, which is death and things that are going to continue because COVID-19 hasn't got a solution yet. But I think we've got to find a COVID-19 friendly way of working, which is, I guess let's ask Dan that in a minute. I'm going to ask Dan a question on that. But actually, in terms of COVID-19 friendly construction, if you're thinking of building something next year, I think you'll get round it. This year, you're going to have a little bit of a problem. But I mean, Dan, in terms of a COVID-19 friendly way of working, how has this affected your business? Are you running things as usual?
No, it's definitely affecting the industry. I think from a construction site view, trying to manage it is particularly challenging because lots of activities require multiple people within a very close proximity of each other. But the bigger one is the welfare side on sites, managing people when they're going for breaks, when they're getting there in the mornings and logging in, is keeping those people in a safe environment and making sure it's sanitized. I mean, construction sites are filthy site. The hardest part of it is keeping welfare and places clean and free of germs and bacteria. When you've got this going on, it's very difficult to control. So I think what you have to do is probably look at a different way of programming potentially going forwards, where there's more of a gap between trades, where you're more of a clean trade, you pass it back, it's cleaned up, you move into the next trade. It will potentially mitigate this interaction between people. The reality of it is tricky because often multiple trades working in multiple faces at the same time. So at the moment we're just trying to manage the system, looking at risk assessments, method statements, where that can be implemented, the safe way of going about stuff, what could we do differently. So I think potentially if this continues to go on, and it may go on for 18 months, who knows, we will have to build differently. And we'll have to approach construction projects differently in a safer, more stretched out build. I can't see how we can continue building construction ramps up at the end. We know that. Into finishes, you throw everybody at it to try and get over the line. You can't be doing that now. Not without somebody controlling that environment. So I think potentially it will change. So it's having an effect now, and I think it will continue to have an effect.
Good stuff. We were chatting earlier about Ritesh's question. He says similar thoughts to what Dan is saying, so I think we've answered that. Thank you, Ritesh.
Right.
One final question then for Dan, before we just pick up a few other ones today. In terms of checking out contractors' stability going forward, what should we do to make sure our contractors have a sustainable business? What checks should we do on them?
Well, historically you can do some credit checks on them, but at the moment it's very difficult because you don't know what effect this is having on their businesses. I think that we have to be very diligent about who we enter into contract. If you don't know the party at all, and you can do research and background checks, look at their business accounts and stuff like that. I think it's looking at what they're doing with their staff, how they're approaching the situation. It's a case of just speaking dialogue, see what it is. But it's something that is on my mind of how we deal with this, because you don't know how volatile those businesses are now. They may have been strong going into this, but we might be into this for another 9 weeks. Who knows how long we're going to be in this? So every business is being stretched, and that's from small companies to massive. So it doesn't take any prisoners in there. It's just whatever they're going to be carrying in, you're going to come out with. But it's what the effects and the damage is in that period. So it's tricky to say how we're going to do with that right now, but I would carry on the same processes as what we can do in the past. It's just checking out where they were and how stable they are, using credit checks and doing qualifying questionnaires and referencing, and just be diligent in what you do.
I think I'd add to that is you just want to get in there and go, you know, when you can, it gets lifted, go to their offices, see what's happened. You know, all the furniture being cleared out. Michael's added a comment in here, you know, Lehman Brothers were AAA rated by Moody's the day they went bust. So
exactly, that's you don't know the full stories, do we? That's just half the job.
Great stuff, Dan. Look, I appreciate you coming in. Hope that's useful. Was that useful, guys? Put a couple of comments in the chat box if you liked us getting down on. We can always get him back another day. If you didn't, then just tell us and I'll break it to him gently after the show. I'll give him a call and just say, no one liked you on Dan. So give me a few comments in the chat box if you like Dan there, and appreciate what he said. Really useful. Thanks, Dan. Great. Thanks, Dan. Yes, Yoko Joe there. Thank you. Yes, very useful. Thank you, says Richard. Ritesh says, like to have Dan back, please. Ritesh, don't jump the gun. Oh. Don't jump the gun. We could have much better people than Dan back here.
Nice for the love, Ritchie.
Dan is very. Oh, Dan, you know me. Dan is very good. Super to have him on. Thanks, Dan. Useful input. Thank you, Dan. Very useful. Most of these are in from your wife, Dan.
Okay.
Keisha's put all these comments in.
That's why.
Great stuff, guys. Thanks for those comments. Dan, thank you for coming on. If it's okay with you, we perhaps invite you back again at another time. People seem to like you having you on here. So, Dan, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you very much for coming on.
Good luck. Stay safe.
Cheers, Dan.
Right, guys, hopefully that was really good. Right, we've got time to get a few more questions in, if that's okay with you. I want to just get a few things in here. I've got one up here. I think, Ian, you could put a bit of input into. I've just got to scroll back up. And guys, I apologize. We've got so many people on. We won't get through every question, but I think we're getting a good flavour today. I've got a question from Yoko, came in quite a bit earlier. Just an opinion, really, Ian, here. So what sort of commercial tenants, industrial, she's put here in brackets, other than the ones needing large premises in multi-million pounds, what sort of tenants would come back to business? So she's saying, who do you think is going to come back to business? I appreciate it depends on the area, but I was wondering what sort of businesses could come back and occupy premises of sort of £200,000 value. So I think in what Yoko's asking there, Yoko might be looking at some opportunities to do some commercial development, maybe. That's maybe what she's thinking. Obviously, a lot of businesses have gone. Who do you think is going to come back and occupy those spaces? Any views, Ian?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? We've got such a sort of change on the horizon at the moment in terms of the way in which everybody's going to be working. For a start, that's one of I think going to be one of the big game changers going forward, is that we've got businesses that potentially have the capacity for home working and have resisted it, haven't embraced it, and now they're having to. So what does the future look like for them? So you could see there could be a situation where we've got businesses that are using quite a lot of commercial or even, I guess, perhaps less industrial, but certainly commercial premises, where they have got a larger unit at the moment, but actually going forward with the home working environment, they're going to be looking for smaller premises. So you've kind of got that downsizing thing that could potentially go on. In terms of the businesses that are coming up through the ranks, so to speak, I mean, Ritchie spoke quite eloquently for a change about one of the things that he's seeing, and we see in terms of the high street and the types of people that are traditionally not been in our towns, that are now looking at taking on retail space and commercial space in the centre of town. So as we see the high street develop then and redevelop, then I think we'll see the nature of some of those types of business that will be moving in there that perhaps hasn't moved in before. I think what we've got to do is take a kind of a view, and it's probably just a common sense view of what are the businesses that are affected badly by the coronavirus and this certainly this extended lockdown. And therefore, at the other end of the scale, you've got some businesses that are going to fare pretty badly, but there's others that are going to be thriving. And I think if you just follow the media on that, you can see that some of the businesses that are now in a situation where their business model lends itself is less affected by the coronavirus. And so they're able to not only maintain their business, but actually grow it as well. So I think there's not a one size fits all here. I think a lot of it is just kind of diving in and looking at what types of business are actually thriving at the moment. And then trying to see if they obviously are likely to be good contenders for taking on premises as they grow, as they expand. But yeah, it's a massive state of flux at the moment, I think, with all of those things going on.
Good stuff. Thank you, Ian. Raj put a comment in earlier, just scrolling up, and this made me giggle. Raj, thank you for this. Raj says, my family are in the Punjab and are asking me, who the hell is social distancing? Oh, I love it. Thank you. That's quite good fun. Guys, there's a whole lot of people joined us that I didn't mention earlier. So just to give a few shout outs, Alicia's on, Andy's on, Kaz is on, Chris, Dave's on, David, quite a few others that have joined us. I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right. Giderus. I don't know if I've got your name right. Apologies if I haven't. Yeah, Jess is on. There's a whole load on here, guys. Lynn Lubermore. Hello, Lubermore. Haven't seen you for a while. Vaz, Vijay. Guys, welcome. Right. Let's just have a look down here. Thank you so much for that, Ian, Yoko said. So she was pleased with that response. Someone says, Alicia says, demand for small offices after being locked up at home may soar. Yeah, do you know, Alicia, that's exactly one of the discussions that I was having. We've been talking about office space and small office space and serviced and co-working, co-living. If you haven't seen it, Alicia, go onto the YouTube channel. And what you do, Ian, just type in YouTube Property CEO. Is that what you do?
You've done this before, haven't you? Yeah, that's exactly what you do.
So, Alicia, and for everyone out there, if you haven't checked out some of the original programs, have a look at them. We touch on various subjects out there, and that is one of the ones we touched on. I want to pick up another question that we had in that Malcolm, the first question we started with today. Malcolm had two questions, and I want to pick up his second one because I promised I would today, and I think it's really interesting. We touched on this, I think, last week, and it's worth picking up on this one today to make sure people really understand what this is about. So Malcolm says he understands that if any commercial or residential units are to be used by key workers, that new legislation was drafted last week that any development would fall under PD, ? I believe this legislation applies to the 31st of December, ? Is my understanding correct? And if so, what do you think will happen after the 31st of December if units have already been converted to residential and used by key workers? Okay, just to understand that, guys, this, and again, speak to planning consultants as always, but this is emergency permitted development rights that were put in. They're not easily, although I would say probably some planning consultants can get round it. Colin Smith was on last weekend, and I think he touched on it. And there are ways you could do some of this stuff, but there's a couple of things or criteria you need to be thinking about. Generally, these emergency procedures have been put in place to allow local authorities and health services to convert spaces for key workers. A lot of it's to do with these hospitals, you know, Birmingham and London, you know, XL1 and so on. They're converting these Nightingale hospitals. That's all part of it. It was put in place for these type of arrangements. It also can be done by local authorities to house key workers. But the key thing is, and I'm not sure if these are the exact wordings, but it's basically by or on behalf of local authorities and health services. So there may be a way you can get around it if you've got an arrangement or a deal with a local authority to convert something you've got. So guys, if you've out there and if you've got some units or some houses, some buy-to-let houses, maybe you could do a temporary PD right, and it is temporary, to convert these on behalf of a health service or local authority. So you have to have an arrangement with them, I suspect, into units for key workers under PD. I don't know the full detail. Again, speak to your planning consultant for this, but it has to be by or on behalf of the local authority. And it does say, I believe it says, on land that's either owned, maintained, or occupied or leased by them. Again, you might be able to get around that by saying, well, I've already done a deal with them. They're going to lease this off of me, this space. So you're going to have a think about that. And the thing I did read is that it is still December 2020, and I'm just reading this out. And then the land or premises has to revert to its original use. So, Malcolm, your question there in terms of, can we do this? Well, yes, potentially you can, but not easily, as it's not really for us to do as developers. That's not why this is put out there. Even if you can get round it, and I see this more as an opportunity for people that's already got existing units that they can do something with, but you're going to have to get in fast and negotiate and do it on behalf of a local authority or health service. Maybe that's the way around it. But again, you need to talk to your planning consultant who understand the detail of this. But the key thing is it has to revert back. So in the Nightingale Hospital, the Birmingham Nightingale Hospital, they're all going to revert back to exhibition centres. So even if you had, let's say you had a huge retail unit that you wanted to convert to temporary accommodation, by the sounds of it, if you could get a deal with local authority, you could, but you're going to have to convert it back. So it's probably a short-term thing, Malcolm, not a long-term thing, which I think you were thinking of. So hopefully that answers your question. Instant response, Malcolm says, thanks. I knew you wouldn't forget. No, of course I wouldn't forget, Malcolm. I told you I'd answer your question. I answered Malcolm's first question early on today, guys, and then Malcolm quickly put in, what about my second question? I messaged him back and said, don't worry, we won't forget. And although he thinks we're in our twilight years, Malcolm, we've still got it. It's all up there. We're on it.
It's just well hidden.
Yeah. Guys, I think we've gone over. We always make sure we definitely get you away by 11 o'clock so you can go and enjoy the sunshine that exists out there. I can't see anything from here. I'm in our studio, which is completely closed. So I'm assuming it's sunny out there. And when I get out there, I'm going to go and enjoy it. Hopefully that was good for you. Thank you for joining us as always. The next session is going to be on Tuesday at 7 o'clock, Ian.
Tuesday, 7 p.m. Get your questions in early. We look forward to answering those. I'll dream up some tips to give you as well. So yeah, it should be good. And the sun is going to be shining on Tuesday, apparently. So all good.
So we're going to get Ian's tips. If you haven't registered, you can register for Tuesday. It'll be up. When will it be up for registering, Ian? Probably Monday?
No, it'll be ready later today.
Great stuff. Later today, guys, you can pre-register for Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Go to propertyCEO /webinars and register for the next session. Thanks for having you guys in. This is why we do it. As you can see, we enjoy this. It's a bit of fun. So Tuesday it'll be myself and Ian. Next Saturday as well, if you want to come next Saturday, we've got an estate agent coming on, which you guys have asked for. And again, tell us anything else you want. Ritesh says, have a great weekend, guys. Thank you, guys. Great stuff, says Gavin. Thank you so much. Enjoyed the show again. Have a great weekend. See you on Tuesday. That's Yoko. Thank you, Yoko. I'm trying to read these out. They're coming in quicker than anything. Dom says, thanks very much. Catch you both next week. Have a good weekend. Have a good weekend yourself, Dom, as well. Great session, says Malcolm. Jim, cheers, chaps. Speak soon. Yeah, I see, Jim, you got the time away from the kids today. Maybe it's Leanne's go on Tuesday. Thumbs up, says Simon. Great, guys. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Keep the love coming. We keep the love coming back to you. Let's keep the positivity. Let's keep half full. Have a good few days. Have a great day off on Sunday, and see you Tuesday evening. Goodbye.
Bye.